their values. Meechadini.com. Transform their values. Meechadini.com. Transform their values. Meechadini.com. Transform their values. www.meechadini.com. Meechadini.com. All the blame should not just be laid upon absence of values. People have to actually work. You have to feed your family. There are concrete material things people got to have. Training people in values is not going to completely solve any problem. As a matter of fact, when you transform people's concrete living condition in the world, you transform their values. Meechadini.com. Meechadini.com. Transform their values. Meechadini.com. Transform their values. Meechadini.com. Transform their values. Meechadini.com. Transform their values. www.meechadini.com. Meechadini.com. All the blame should not just be laid upon absence of values. People have to actually work. You have to feed your family. There are concrete material things people got to have. Training people in values is not going to completely solve any problem. As a matter of fact, when you transform people's concrete living condition in the world, you transform their values. Meechadini.com. Meechadini.com.
Yes. You know, if you transform a people's concrete conditions, because we know that there are concrete material things people just got to have. And if you transform the ways people got to get those concrete material things, or just transform their conditions altogether, transform their conditions completely, having them more reliant and dependent on a new wave of conditioning, then you ultimately transform a people's values. To make society more fair and equal, all the way around, politically, economically, socially, and psychologically, we must look at people's relationship to society. Whether they feel oppressed, maybe they feel depressed, maybe they feel overly stressed. You know, we got to look at these sort of things. What type of worker are they? Are they the type of worker that follow out their dreams, goals, aspirations, and ambitions? Or do they work for other people's goals, aspirations, dreams, and agendas? You see, society is made up of beliefs, ideologies, and philosophies, all traveling along the socio-political train that by utilizing our current democratized law can forcefully push those citizens of less powerful beliefs, ideologies, and philosophies into a conformed, obeying, subordinate position within society that they themselves are supposed to play a role in and have some say in. In a true democratized society, everyone's past history should be taken in consideration. Just as a person or one who would go to a psychiatrist or psychologist's office, where that psychiatrist or psychologist would want to know that individual's own personal history. Because it is only through understanding one's history that one's behavior can be understood, right? A psychologist or psychiatrist cannot take the history of a different person and just apply it to another. The values someone else have, the ideas someone else have, are not the same as others. In a democratized society, individuals are supposed to have power. Not just one group of socio-economically privileged individuals, or two predominant political groups running down ideologies and philosophies for others to live by. One is truly understood as an individual through their own beliefs, ideologies, and philosophies, through their own history and experience. It would be unjust, unfair, and tyrant-like to campaign and push forward the mental and emotional thoughts, feelings, principles, and beliefs on the more politically and economically powerless individuals of society. Those politically and economically powerless individuals do not control the national means of production, marketing, and distribution. They do not have a political party that truly represents their history and experience, their beliefs, ideologies, and philosophies. We live in a huge melting pot of people. There should be more than 3 popular political parties in this country. What about the people in the country who have been oppressed by the very elite within the country? Those who pay tomorrow prices for yesterday goods and don't know the secrets and loopholes within the system for a better way of life. Those who get charged for street crimes like theft, armed robbery, possession with intent to sell, domestic violence, felonious assaults, and etc. Violence has its common place amongst the powerless and oppressed, you know. We can go back and see that when Europeans felt that they were being taxed with no representation, they fled Europe, came to America, destroyed, killed, and murdered the indigenous people of this land, the Native Americans, which they called Indians, and brought over slave labor to grow and mechanize the land and the economy. The greatest crime one can charge the so-called leader of the free world. The fact that many of its corporations would not exist if it wasn't for unadulterated murder and slave labor, of course. Yet, feeling somewhat like slaves themselves, they still managed to wage war against the crown, their motherland. We can look back on how the southern plantation owners became rebels towards the new law, how they rebelled against the new law and committed violent crimes against the new freed men to try to gain back their economic power and once privileged positions within society. We then can look at the early relationship in America between African Americans and the Irish, how the poorest and low-wage Europeans fought amongst themselves, fought against fellow Europeans, got drunk, beat their wives and children, got hauled off in police wagons, paddy wagons, and worked cruel and demeaning jobs just to make ends meet. They did not condone slavery. The Irish did not condone slavery at all, but did whatever it would take to fight for whatever little power they did have. For when slaves became free, a lot of them traveled up north to take the jobs that was once for the Irish. The Irish then formed gangs and worker unions that would beat up and threaten the African American worker. And because I mentioned possession with the intent to sell, we cannot forget the economic power struggles of the Prohibition era in America. You see, this simple fact in American history, this simple fact, proves that violence and criminal activity has a direct correlation with powerlessness and oppression. And then we can look at those who do crime using their mind, so-called white-collar crimes, where people may steal your identity and or cheat the system. This too can have a correlation with those in oppressed conditions. Of course, those who commit such crimes do so because they are victimized to the fullest degree by the current secretly criminogenic society itself. They tend to not want to see themselves just like all the other powerless, oppressed individuals. So they go to desperate measures to make sure it never perceives to be that way, when in actuality it's very much so. And because they hold no true power and they cannot rewrite history in their own favor, with a certain persuasive political campaign, they can very easily become criminal in the eyes of the public. All because they try to identify with the aggressor, or in this case, they try to identify with the oppressor. They try to be something that they're not, you see. You are not, or we are not, elite capitalists that control and has power over the universal means of production, distribution, and marketing, since marketing has a direct correlation with advertisement. I consider it mind control. We can never aspire or organize to be like the Federal Reserve, IMF, or the World Bank without a true revolutionary fight. You cannot be afraid to bleed. We are only susceptible to the likes of, say, a Bernie Madoff. But isn't it funny how the victor, those who remain victorious, always write the story in history? How he paint a heroic, courageous, fearless, and bold tale of his outright violence and crime. Or he attempt to conceal and cover up, and then set aside a whole political arrangement filled with reactionary, not revolutionary, but reactionary beliefs, ideologies, and philosophies, which then they push on others within society. But who will speak up for those who feel political and ideological oppression today? Those who do not have the power to pose their beliefs, agenda, philosophy, ideas on others. Especially as those who are in an elite position within society that are gearing up and revving up to spring out this technological, eco-sustainable, man-made, airtight system amongst us. Who will speak up for those who feel political and ideological oppression today? Meechadini.com, forbetterconditions.org. Support the cause. Support the cause.